Attention! Who do you think is smarter, an elephant or an ant? Most likely, you'll think that an ant. It's probably a trick question, right? But I'm stronger.
Yes, I am very strong. My muscles are getting bigger.
Yes, in the wild, you don't have to be smart to survive. But in the animal world, power is so boring, there's not even much to show. Better yet, let's take a look together at those who we can calmly call super geniuses. Let's go. It seems that of all the animals alive today, only birds are able to imitate human speech.
I'm Disco, and I know it.
Are you not a crook? My name is Disco.
Well, some other primates seem to understand it, but are unable to speak themselves. But there are dolphins. They're very social animals with a high level of intelligence. So why not learn to speak?
1, 2, 3. He would work on the.
When researchers noticed that dolphins mimic the tone of human conversation, they suggested that animals could not only understand our speech, but also mimic it through their breathing holes. In the 60s, Margaret Howe Lovett spent several months trying to train Peter the dolphin to say certain words.
A-E-I-O.
And he was even able to do something. Some of the squeaks did sound like normal human speech, though you can't understand it without subtitles. Perhaps if Margaret had had more time, the experiment would have ended more successfully. But Peter fell in love with his teacher, and soon NASA stopped funding the research. The story of teaching dolphins to speak English ended before it had even begun.
You can do better, Peter.
Naturalist and writer Joe Hutto was luckier, probably because he didn't try to teach human speech to anyone. Instead, Joe mastered the language of turkeys himself.
Bullshit.
No kidding. He raised a brood of wild turkeys which thought the man was their father, or mother, or even a great aunt, really. The important thing is that they followed Joe everywhere, and he learned the language, and even began to speak it. Well, of course, turkeys don't have specific sounds for words, but these birds were still pretty smart, at least smarter than they seem at first glance. But to be honest, I don't really believe it.
You don't believe in anything?
Yes, I do.
There's no question, though, about the intelligence of elephants. Some experiments even show that it corresponds to the level of a 7-year-old child. No wonder elephants can draw, and they invented sunscreen. Yep, it looks like sand. Not that they did much scientific research, of course, but here's an interesting fact. Elephants have very sensitive skin. Yes, animals commonly thought of as thick-skinned are actually very sensitive. Literally. What's more, their skin is incredibly vulnerable. Elephants can actually get sunburned. To avoid this, the animals wipe themselves with mud and throw sand on themselves and try to stay in the shade during the hottest hours. And here's another fact. Elephants know what altruism is. They sometimes help other animals and people too. So if you get too close to an elephant and you don't have any sunscreen, it'll gladly share some of its own. That's all right. But what if some other surprise comes along with the sand? Meet Sicarius, a venomous recluse spider that doesn't like to weave webs, but just loves sand. When Sicarius is burying itself in it, it looks like the spider is totally excited about what's going on. Oh yeah. But actually, Sicarius needs sand to hunt. When it buries itself properly, the spider becomes practically invisible to its victims and can spend a very long time in an ambush. And I mean really long. These creatures can do without water and food for almost a whole year, so they don't rush anywhere at all. Perhaps that's why the lifespan of a sand spider sometimes reaches 15 years, while most other spiders barely manage to celebrate their 3rd birthday. However, the oldest known spider belonged to a different species. The spider, called number 16, was a Gaius villicus and lived in an Australian reserve from 1974 to 2016. 43 years! All that time, she's been watched by arachnologists, people who study spiders, and for some reason enjoy it. Anyway, for 4 decades, people have watched the life of number 16, and all that time, the spider spent in the same hole. Now that's what I call self-isolation. Chances are old lady spider would have managed to live many more years if her burrow hadn't been attacked one day by a spider wasp, the ruthless food chain. And though many people felt sorry for number 16, so many that there were articles about her in major publications, But that's the way nature works. The strongest, fastest, luckiest individual survives. Well, and in the case of the hermit crabs, also the one who knows how to adapt.
Guys, there's a hermit crab using a shot glass as a shell. That's crazy.
As I said in an earlier video, the life of these crabs is directly dependent on their shell. You have to get one of a bigger size over time, and demand far exceeds supply. So some hermit crabs use human garbage for shelter, and it looks honestly pretty sad.
I've never seen that. Look at it. Won't focus. There it goes.
There's a chance that a crab who's been carrying around some bean can will find a suitable shell, but on the other hand, if humanity produces so much extra stuff, why not create something for the poor crabs? Tokyo artist Aki Inomata printed transparent plastic shells decorated with silhouettes of cities and put hermit crabs into them. And while the crabs hardly appreciated the artistic element, they were certainly glad they no longer had to deal with the apartment issue.